Hi, my name is Adam Fletcher, and for this, my 11th installment in my series on Youth Voice, I want to talk about where to start with Youth Voice. What is the foundations, the building blocks of Youth Voice, as it were? For the last 10 years, I've been studying and working with young people across the United States and around the world to have this conversation about why, when, where, and how Youth Voice should happen. I also have the conversation with adults, but I want to start by acknowledging that both of these different groups come from different places when they're thinking about Youth Voice. A lot of the time, folks begin with a very intuitive kind of belief about Youth Voice. It starts in their hearts, it starts in their minds, it starts from a place of, I just know, I just understand. You might be thinking this to yourself right now. Why talk about where Youth Voice begins? I already know where it begins for me. I just get it. Well, I think that's interesting. I don't necessarily think that's a place to build a movement from. One of the things that I've come to understand is that it takes time and energy to build a movement in a deliberative and practical way. For more than 10 years, I've been working with different institutions throughout our society to help create this foundation, to help build this movement. What I've discovered is that inside of large agencies, such as state government, national nonprofit organizations, and federal government agencies, there isn't a lot of room for intuition sometimes, particularly when places face the different modes of standardization and kind of mechanization. Folks need very concrete and deliverable reasons why they need to be engaging young people in a practical way and why they need to listen to Youth Voice in a substantive fashion. I believe that Youth Voice has to begin from a place of heart and from a place of mind, simultaneously, rather than one or the other. That place of heart is that intuition. It is that place that firmly believes, knows, and understands that Youth Voice is just the right thing to do. But I also believe that we have to have the mind involved, that we have to have the research and firm theoretical foundations to begin our work from. What that can look like takes a whole different perspective depending on where you're sitting at. For me, it's a critical perspective. I have read and studied the works of critical theorists like Foucault and Freire and many others, and believe that Youth Voice is inherently it's a die-hard necessity in democratic society. And more than Youth Voice, it actually requires the active engagement of young people as full citizens throughout all of our democratic systems. That much said, other people believe it different. They think it's a matter of efficacy. They think that engaging young people is a more effective way to go about delivering the different services and needs of our society. Still, other people believe that Youth Voice is inherently a justice issue. It might be all three, and actually it is. All three things at once. And more. It has to do with culture, it has to do with heritage, it has to do with tradition, and it has to do with all kinds of different perspectives. All that I'm calling for is that we know where we come from before we begin this work. It's the whole thing about if you don't know where you come from, you'll never know where you're going. And I really think that in order to have a firm Youth Voice agenda, we have to know where we come from. Lots of different movements have come at it as if they are amoebas, as if they belong to nowhere, came from nowhere, and if they're going nowhere. Well, that's the real problem, because what we need is a firm and concrete movement that knows where it's been, that knows where it's going, and it also knows where it stands at present. All three things simultaneously. We have to stop ducking away from our traditional roots. We come from a movement that's firmly footed in the work of Dr. King and Malcolm X, from the work of the 1930s union organizers, and earlier still, when young people who were newsboys were rallying for change in their cities, when young people were teaching schoolhouses on the prairies and in the forests of North America when it was being founded. And even further still, it goes back. Some people draw the roots as far as Joan of Arc, and even further still. But we have those roots inside this movement, and what I'm calling for is an understanding of those roots, a naming and an understanding. You can learn more about my perspectives on this by searching the word history at my blog at youngerworld.org. You can also learn more about the work that I do at adamfletcher.net. Thank you for watching and have a great day.